La Perfection, a renowned restaurant celebrated for its culinary brilliance, was on the verge of a remarkable transformation. When Mariah, a calm 68-year-old black woman, joined as a humble dishwasher, the kitchen dynamics began to shift in surprising ways. Chef Victor, known for his tyrannical behavior, intensified his verbal abuse and cruel treatment of the staff daily. Amidst this turmoil, Mariah's quiet presence became a catalyst for change that no one anticipated. What hidden motivations lay behind her humble demeanor, and what unexpected challenges awaited a chef whose biases had never been questioned? Before we delve into this story of culinary intrigue simmering with tension and unexpected twists, share in the comments where you are tuning in from today. And if you enjoy the narrative, don't forget to subscribe. La Perfection stood proudly in the city center, its gleaming facade a beacon for the affluent. Inside, the dining room hummed with the quiet conversations of exclusive patrons, the clinking of fine china, and the subtle pop of champagne corks. Yet, behind the polished exterior lay a vastly different realm, the kitchen. In this domain of stainless steel and scorching heat, Chef Victor reigned supreme. At 45, he was at the pinnacle of his career, his name synonymous with culinary excellence. His salt and pepper hair and piercing blue eyes exuded authority, while his skilled hands plated each dish with the precision of a surgeon. However, beneath Victor's culinary brilliance lurked a darker side. His temper was as fiery as the flames leaping from his stoves, and his ego was as inflated as a soufflé fresh from the oven. On this particular evening, the kitchen buzzed with its usual chaos. Line cooks moved with practiced efficiency, responding with sharp, "Yes, chef," to Victor's every command. The air was thick with the sense of sizzling meats and fragrant herbs, underscoring the palpable tension that pulsed through the kitchen. Victor stood at the pass, his eyes scanning each plate with laser focus. Suddenly, he bellowed, "This isn't good enough." The room froze as he held up a plate of perfectly seared scallops, arranged beautifully. To the untrained eye, it looked flawless, but to Victor, it was a disaster. "Look at this," he shouted, thrusting the plate towards a young line cook named Ethan. "The sear is uneven. The plating is sloppy. This is what you call Michelin star quality?" Without warning, he tipped the plate, sending the delicate scallops crashing to the floor. Ethan, a young man in his early 20s, stood frozen, shock and fear etched on his face. "I'm sorry, chef," he stammered. "I'll fix it right away." But Victor wasn't done. His face flushed with rage, he advanced on Ethan, backing him into a corner. "Sorry doesn't cut it in my kitchen. This is the third time this week you've messed up. Maybe you're not cut out for this. Perhaps you should go flip burgers instead." The rest of the kitchen staff kept their heads down, pretending to focus on their tasks. They had witnessed this cycle before. Victor's explosive rage, his cruel words, his ability to reduce even the most confident cooks to trembling wrecks. It was just another day in the pressure cooker that was La Perfection's kitchen. As Victor continued his tirade, Mia, a waitress in her late 20s with warm brown eyes and a gentle spirit, cautiously approached the pass. "Chef," she began, her voice trembling slightly. Trying to diffuse the escalating tension, Mia spoke softly. "The Carmichaels are inquiring about their order." Chef Victor whirled around, his eyes flashing. "Do I look like I care what the Carmichaels want right now? Can't you see I'm dealing with incompetence?" He gestured wildly at Ethan, who appeared ready to disappear. Mia flinched but stood her ground. "I understand, chef, but they are one of our most valued customers. Perhaps I could Perhaps you could do your job and stop interfering with mine," Victor snapped, cutting her off. "Get out of my kitchen now." As Mia retreated, her cheeks flushed with humiliation, Victor turned back to Ethan. "As for you," he growled, "get out of my sight. You're done for tonight. Don't bother coming in tomorrow, or ever again." Ethan's face crumpled, but he didn't argue. He simply removed his apron, placed it on the counter, and walked out, shoulders slumped in defeat. The remaining staff exchanged quick, worried glances, aware that any one of them could easily find themselves in Ethan's position. Victor surveyed the kitchen, his chest heaving. "What are you all staring at? We have orders to fill. Get back to work." The kitchen erupted into frenetic activity, everyone desperate to avoid becoming Victor's next target. Yet, beneath the surface of frantic energy, an undercurrent of resentment and fear lingered. As the night wore on, more staff members fell victim to Victor's wrath. A sommelier was berated for suggesting the wrong wine pairing, and a pastry chef nearly broke down in tears when Victor condemned her chocolate soufflé as an insult to cocoa beans everywhere. Even the dishwashers weren't safe, with Victor storming into their area to criticize the water temperature and the shine on the plates. By the time the last customer left and the kitchen began its nightly cleanup, the staff was exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally. They moved like automatons, scrubbing and polishing in silence, each lost in their thoughts. Mia lingered in the dining room, helping the waitstaff clear the final tables. She couldn't shake the image of Ethan's dejected face as he left the kitchen. How many more talented individuals would Victor crush before someone intervened? While wiping down a table, Mia overheard two regular customers leaving the restaurant. "The food was exquisite as always," one remarked. "But did you notice how tense the atmosphere seemed?" The other nodded in agreement. "Yes, I sensed it too. And did you see how stressed the staff looked? I wonder if everything's okay in the kitchen." Mia bit her lip, resisting the urge to speak up. She knew that if word got back to Victor that she had been discussing the kitchen dynamics, her job would be at risk. Yet, a part of her hoped that if enough people noticed, perhaps change would be possible. As the last customers departed, Victor emerged from the kitchen, his chef's whites pristine, not a hair out of place. Looking at him now, it was hard to reconcile this polished professional with the raging tyrant from earlier. "Excellent service tonight, everyone," he announced, his voice smooth and controlled. "We maintained our standards as always. Remember, perfection is not an accident. It's a choice we make every single day." The staff nodded dutifully, but Mia noticed the lack of enthusiasm in their eyes. Victor might think he was inspiring greatness, but in reality he was fostering an environment of fear and resentment. As they filed out of the restaurant, Mia overheard two of the waitstaff murmuring to one another, their expressions reflecting the shared anxiety that had taken root in the kitchen. "I can't take much more of this," one-line cook whispered, a look of despair on his face. "I'm seriously thinking about quitting." "But where would you go?" another replied. "Victor's name on your resume opens doors. We're stuck here if we want to make it in this industry." Mia sighed as she collected her belongings, reflecting on a sentiment she had heard often. Victor's reputation as a culinary genius made working at La Perfection a coveted opportunity in the restaurant world. But at what cost? As she stepped into the cool night air, Mia felt a nagging certainty that something had to change. The question remained, what would be the catalyst for that change, and how much more damage would Victor inflict before it happened? Little did she know, the winds of change were already stirring, ready to sweep through La Perfection like a cleansing storm. The following morning, as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the city's skyscrapers, an unassuming figure made her way toward La Perfection. Grace Williams, a woman in her late 60s with silver hair and kind eyes that crinkled at the corners, paused to admire the restaurant's imposing facade. To an onlooker, Grace appeared to be just another early morning worker heading to a job. She wore simple but neat clothes, comfortable shoes, dark slacks, and a crisp white shirt. Yet there was a quiet dignity and strength about her that set her apart. As Grace pushed open the heavy door and stepped into the restaurant's immaculate interior, she took a deep breath. This was the start of her undercover mission. Her son, Marcus, the CEO of La Perfection, had asked her to take on this role after hearing unsettling rumors about the toxic environment in the kitchen. Without hesitation, Grace agreed. This restaurant represented more than just a business to her family. It was a legacy she was determined to protect. The maître d', a young man named Thomas, looked up in surprise as Grace entered. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said politely, "but we're not open yet. Perhaps you'd like to make a reservation for later?" Grace smiled warmly. "Actually, I'm here about the dishwasher position. I believe I'm expected." Thomas's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "Oh, of course. Let me just, get Chef Victor for you." As Thomas disappeared into the back, Grace took a moment to survey her surroundings. The dining room was pristine, each table set with precision and silverware gleaming in the soft morning light. It was hard to imagine the storm brewing behind the scenes in the kitchen. A few moments later, the kitchen doors swung open, and Chef Victor strode out, his presence immediately filling the room. He looked Grace up and down, a mixture of surprise and barely concealed disdain on his face. "So, you're here for the dishwasher position?" he asked, his tone clearly indicating that he found the idea laughable. Grace met his gaze steadily. "That's right. I may be older, but I assure you I'm more than capable of handling the work." Victor's lip curled slightly. "Well, we'll see about that, won't we? Follow me." As they walked through the swinging doors into the kitchen, Grace observed every detail: the gleaming stainless steel surfaces, the state-of-the-art equipment, and the palpable tension in the air. It painted a picture of a high-pressure environment where perfection was the only acceptable standard. Victor led her to the dishwashing station, gesturing dismissively. "This is where you'll be working. I expect every dish, every pot, every utensil to be spotless. We have a reputation to maintain here, and that starts with the basics. Do you think you can handle that?" Grace nodded, her expression serene. "I can handle it." "Sure I can, Chef. I've always believed that every job, no matter how small, is crucial to the overall success of an operation." Victor scrutinized her, trying to gauge if she was mocking him, but Grace's face remained earnest and open. "Right," he replied after a moment. "Well, you can start immediately. Thomas will show you where to change and get you set up with a uniform. Don't expect any special treatment because of your age. In my kitchen, everyone pulls their weight or they're out." "Understood perfectly, Chef," Grace replied, her voice steady. "Thank you for the opportunity." As Victor walked away, barking orders at the arriving staff, Grace allowed herself a small smile. She sensed that her presence would bring unexpected changes to the kitchen dynamics. Over the next few hours, as the kitchen buzzed with activity, Grace settled into her role. She worked efficiently, her movements practiced and assured. Despite her age, she had always appreciated the meditative quality of household tasks and approached dishwashing with the same mindful attention she applied to everything in her life. While she worked, Grace observed the kitchen dynamics. She noted how Victor moved from station to station, his critical gaze missing nothing. His talent was undeniable. He could taste a sauce and immediately discern what it needed, and he could spot any imperfection in a dish with a mere glance. However, his communication methods left much to be desired. "Are you trying to poison our customers?" Victor's voice rang out, causing Grace to look up. He was glaring at a young cook holding a pan of what looked like perfectly seared fish. The cook was visibly trembling. No, chef. I thought," Victor interrupted. "I don't pay you to think. I pay you to follow my instructions to the letter. This is overcooked. Start again. If you can't get it right this time, you might as well pack your knives and leave." Grace felt a pang of sympathy for the young cook, recalling her own early days in the culinary world. Kitchens had always been high-pressure environments, but this level of fear and intimidation felt counterproductive. As the day wore on, Grace found her rhythm. The constant flow of dishes kept her busy, yet she remained keenly aware of the kitchen atmosphere. She noticed how the staff flinched when Victor approached, speaking in hushed tones when he was out of earshot. It was clear they respected his skill, but feared his temper. During a rare lull in the afternoon, while drying delicate wine glasses, Grace sensed someone beside her. She looked up to find Sarah, the waitress she had noticed earlier. "You're doing great," Sarah said softly, reaching for a stack of plates. "I'm Sarah, by the way. Welcome to La Perfection." Grace returned the smile. "Thank you, Sarah. I'm Grace. It's certainly an interesting place to work." Sarah glanced around nervously before leaning in closer. "I hope this doesn't sound patronizing, but are you sure you're up for this? Chef Victor can be pretty harsh, especially on new staff, and the pace here is intense." Grace gently patted Sarah's hand. "I appreciate your concern, dear, but don't you worry about me. I've weathered my fair share of storms in life. This is just another one." Sarah regarded her curiously, sensing there was more to this unassuming dishwasher than met the eye. But before she could ask more, Victor's voice boomed across the kitchen.